Welcome to Healthy Mindset Miracles. It is important to be aware of potential triggers that might arise during this discussion. Before we dive in, please note that there is a disclaimer. I am not a licensed mental health therapist or a professional. While we aim to inspire and educate, information provided is not to replace professional advice or treatment. If you or someone you know is in need of mental health support, we strongly encourage you seeking qualified mental health professional. So I do have Naomi and I here. She is amazing. Every single time I talk to Naomi, we sit here and talk for hours. But both her and I have some incredible triumph stories over anxiety. And so we're going to talk about that today. Naomi, welcome. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me. Looking forward to the conversation again.
Absolutely. Now you've ventured off into the world of helping teens. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I decided to help teens, of course, because of my personal story. I found myself at a point in life where I was self sabotaging myself to the point that I became bedridden and unable to move. And when I began studying and realizing that I felt like I had no control, but through personal development and reading neuroscience, I saw that I actually did have control. And when I started researching all of this, it kind of made me upset because I thought, why aren't we teaching these things in school? I feel like all of us suffer so much with trying to discover ourselves, develop that self-awareness, the skills that we all need for life. We all need skills like communication skills, emotional intelligence, self-awareness, resilience, right? To push past our fears, push past our anxiety. And that's why I got into working with youth, because I realized that there was a problem with our system and that we weren't getting the tools that we needed for life. And that's why I got into it personally, because I realized that with myself, if I would have had these tools, my life would have been so much easier and I wouldn't have fallen down that dark path that some of us go through in life, right? When we hit that
Yeah.
midlife crisis, and I feel like a lot of the midlife crisis that a lot of us suffer is because of that lack of self awareness. And that's why I got into helping youth, because I feel it's much needed and because we need it personally.
Need to start young, learning this stuff. This is stuff that they don't teach us in school. There's no, knowledge that they give us to help us go through our emotions, go through the changes, the things that we go through, other than there is a sex ed, which I'm never sure what that was about or how
Yeah.
that actually helped, because when I was in school, we did have those classes, but all it did was make them want to go and try what it is they were learning, and there was a
Okay.
lot of teenage pregnancies when I was younger. I myself was a teenage pregnancy. I was 16 years old when I got pregnant with my first daughter. And I don't wish that on anyone because at 16 years old, I had no business having a baby. Thankfully, I did have family support, but it's scary. I look at my daughters today, I want them to enjoy life. And so I've talked to them like in depth about protecting themselves and not allowing their lives to go down in that aspect of thinking that they need to have some type of emotional, physical connection with a guy until they're older, until they're ready to have an actual relationship or get married, one or the other. But
Yes.
it's just those things are not taught properly. If you ask me, those sex ed classes were not taught properly. And
No.
they don't teach about emotions either. And so you're right. I think it's amazing that Naomi, you've taken it upon yourself to do that. Let's talk a little bit about what you experienced as a child. Was it anxiety, depression? What kind of challenges did you experience?
Yes, I suffered with anxiety for most of my life. It was one of the hardest things to be able to get rid of. And a lot of us experience that fear. And some of the anxiety that I had, of course, had to do with the fact that when we grow up, there's a brainwashing that happens from the beginning, and we don't realize it, that there's a programming, and it's natural because that's the way our brain works. For example, we grow up, we don't know how to tie our shoes. We don't know languages. We don't know how to communicate. So all of these things we're learning, this is programming. The problem
Mhm.
with our brain is that for our adolescence, we are in an alpha state, which this alpha state means we are in a hypnotic state, right? So,
Mhm.
of course, you are learning all these patterns. The thing is that there's no filter in our brain that says, oh, this pattern is not good for you. Don't learn that one. Learn this one. This one's good for you. It all goes in. So, meanwhile, we are learning all these motor functions and all these abilities, we're also taking in the negative patterns. So, if you
Mhm.
live in a very dysfunctional home, well, guess what? You're taking that as a part of you. So I grew
Right.
up in a very dysfunctional and toxic home with where there was narcissism, there was violence, there was abuse. And that was the way that I learned how to communicate. Now, naturally, I am not that kind of aggressive or toxic person, but guess what? It affected me my entire life because what I did was I avoided. I became that avoidant personality. So I would
Mhm.
avoid intimacy, I would avoid relationships. And even when it came to business, it started affecting me because it got to a certain point where I somehow knew I wasn't equipped and I didn't have the mindset. So I backed out a lot of good deals and I missed out on a lot of good business opportunities because I was afraid. You
Did you
understand?
feel
And so
inadequate?
yes, and I was inadequate. You know, they say that you cannot become a millionaire if you don't have a millionaire mindset, and that's exactly what happened. I
Mm.
did not have the mindset, I did not have the skills to be able to go after what I wanted. And so, of course, this brought a sense of insecurity and it brought feelings of self worth in me. And so I got to a point where I was frozen. I could not move forward.
Uh-huh.
And of course, you can't go back. And so that's where my whole journey began of self
Yeah.
discovery.
It's crazy the things that we go through as a young individual. For me, it was, my heart rate started going up at a very young age, and I just started to have problems. When I was 12 years old, I remember I had a really bad headache in school, and I wasn't feeling very well, and I told my teacher that I needed to go see a nurse. They just started a nursing pilot program, and this actually is a write-up in the newspaper. If you looked it up on the internet, you could find it, which is crazy. But the nursing pilot program had just started, and I wanted to go see the nurse, and the teacher just told me to put my head down on my desk. So I did, and then the bell rang for our next period to go to class, and I was supposed to go to gym, which we were supposed to run track that day. And instead, I went to the nurse's station without asking. And when I got to the nurse's station, I told him I just wasn't feeling good. I had a really bad headache. And she sat down, she took my blood pressure. My blood pressure at 12 years old was 180 over 120. By the time they had me lay down and they called my mom, that's when anxiety started. That's when my heart rate started to go up at 12 years old. And my mom came and she was like freaking out. And she's like, do you want they called the EMT and the EMT got there. And I was embarrassed because I don't want my friends seeing the EMT take me out on a stretcher. So
Right.
they said, "We have to get you to the hospital." And my mom, I said, "Can I just ride with my mom? It's only a block down the road." So my mom got me in the car. We get to the hospital. By the time we got to the hospital, the anxiety was so bad that my blood pressure had raised to 210 over 180. Mind you, I was 12 years old. They had decided to do some tests. Of course, they gave me a medication to drop the blood pressure really fast. And they did some tests and they found out that my right kidney had malfunctioned and they had to remove it. So I was in the hospital for 2 weeks and 2 days, and my right kidney was removed, and of course, they gave me all of these do's and don'ts, things that you can do, things that you can't do, things that you eat, things you can't eat, things like that. I've lived a pretty normal life. I'm 44 years old today, and I've pretty lived a pretty normal life with only having 1 kidney, but it was scary, and so from that point I started to freak out about everything. Like any little thing that would happen to me, any little pain that I would have, anything. Anything that would happen if I started feeling like discomfort in my side or if whatever, I would just start to have anxiety over it and sometimes panic attacks. And it went well into my adulthood. I'd watch my heart I'd put a watch on to watch my heart rate, and I think that made it worse because I would
Yes.
see my heart rate to get to 114, and then I would freak out, which would then make my heart rate go up even higher, and then we would call 911 or I'd go to the hospital. I can't tell you how many times I went to the hospital as an adult thinking I'm having some kind of heart attack or something's wrong with me, and just to find out, like, they do all these blood tests, they do all and I'm fine. There was and as soon as they tell me I'm fine, I get in my car and my heart rate's 80. And I'm like, "Really? Why do I do that to myself?" And it got to a point where I've done that so many times that I finally went, "I've gotta do something about this.
Yes.
I have to change my mindset. I need to
Exactly.
change the way I'm thinking." And so that's where the healing began for me, is changing the way that I think. Where did the healing begin for you?
Well, it's a similar thing. And like I was saying, it's that lack of awareness and it creates more fear. So I was having epileptic seizures from the anxiety. Literally, I would just block out and pass out. And this also went well up into my 40s. And I think that it stems from that lack of self-awareness and what's going on. Like I always say this, and I'm sure you understand. So any product that you buy comes with a set of instructions, right?
Mhm,
Anything you buy, no matter how stupid it is, it comes with instructions. We buy a computer, we buy a phone, we buy a laptop. We take classes for Word Perfect, we take
mhm.
classes for Photoshop. But what about this computer? No one teaches us
Yeah,
that. Exactly. So we don't know how it
exactly.
works. And so this is where I feel my anxiety stemmed because I didn't understand how my body works. I didn't understand that, for example, if you're going to do something that you've never done before, you're going to get very anxious, right? But there's
Mhm,
nothing wrong with you. It doesn't mean that you're not good at it. It doesn't mean that you suck. It's just that your body needs to acclimate. Our bodies resist change. And
mhm,
everything that we do, you have to think of it as like a highway in your brain. So any skill you have, anything that you've learned, these neural pathways look like little highways in your brain. And the more that you use them, it could look like a highway, it could look like a street, it could look like a dirt road if you don't use something a lot, right? So
mhm.
in order to create this, it's like if we were going to build a house, it takes a lot of freaking work, right? The same thing
Yes.
when we're trying something new, that because no one teaches us this, when we're going to try it, we feel like we're dysfunctional, there's something wrong with us, we're
Mhm,
scared, and then we think, oh no. And the body, what does it try to do? It tries to protect us, right? We have
mhm,
that subconscious reptilian type of the brain that is always there and it tries to protect us, right? And fear is there to help us and to keep us
mhm.
away from danger. But we live in this modern world and now we associate everything with fear, everything's scary.
Well, we
And if
think
we
fear
don't
is a bad
understand it,
thing.
exactly,
Yeah.
or we think that, oh my God, I have this resistance. Like, for example, you're young and you're trying to play a new sport, or you're trying to do this really complicated calculus problem, and you start feeling bad. You get anxiety, you get restlessness, this resistance, and we think, oh my God, no, I'm not meant to do this. This is not for me. And we give up.
Yeah.
And that's what we have to fight. And just like you, I had to understand, oh my God, this is mindset. I went to psychiatrists, I took pills. I got to a point that I tried to take my own life because I thought I had no
Mm,
control. I thought I was broken. I thought I was a
mhm.
broken human being that couldn't change. And then when I started to learn about myself, really learn about myself, about how my brain works, about the human body, about how patterns are formed, right? About fear, self sabotage. And I started putting it all together. That's when my anxiety started going on. Because the reason why we have anxiety is because on a subconscious level, we feel like we have no control. We
Right,
feel like we have no power. And everything in this world, in this society, is designed to take away our power.
right,
And so
right.
it's like a whole rebirth. And I always feel like it's a rebirth of this deprogramming that we have to all take into account and do for ourselves, deprogram from what we've learned, and now take our power back and learn about ourselves. And really, that's to me what life is all about.
I
It's
agree,
about that
and
journey, that our journey, our internal
yes.
journey. We're so focused on up there. No one teaches us to go inside.
Exactly, that's what I was saying, like, mindset is all everything. For me, I had to think about, "Okay, if my heart rate's going up, what was I thinking about? What are my thoughts? Why would my heart rate be going up? Obviously, I'm healthy, so what are the things that I can do?" And I started learning go for a walk. Or actually, one of the things that I did often was I would just lay down on the floor on my stomach and feel my heart rate. And I'm like, okay, so my heart rate's going up. Let's just take some deep breath and feel and imagine going inside my body. Imagine mentally, and my heart rate's coming down, and I'm breathing, and everything's fine, that I am healthy. And miraculously, it would go down. And then just a few minutes later, I would be fine, and then I'd redirect my thoughts, and I'd go off and go do something else. And I wouldn't be calling 911. I didn't go up to the hospital anymore. I started controlling the anxiety. Some of the worst ones was when I was driving, though. I would drive, I would start thinking about things, and then all of a sudden I'd start having where I'd feel like my chest got heavy and I couldn't breathe. And then when that happens, then your heart rate starts going up and you start freaking out. So I'd pull over. And this is funny, but I would literally pull over at a gas station. I would go and see if I could get into their cool, like into one of their freezers or something, or open up one of their soda where you get the soda doors. And I would just stick my head in there and just take in the cold air because I figured out that if you put myself in cold air, that it would stop it. And so then I started turning my air conditioner up really high in my car and stuff like that, and that would stop the panic attacks. And I was like, okay, so if I can figure out how to stop it, then I can figure out how to change my mind so it doesn't start in the first place. And now, like, I have victory over it now. I don't even have them anymore because the moment that I might because it starts with your thoughts. My first episode on this podcast, if you guys listen to it, you'll hear what I talk about when it happens. It starts with your thoughts. But now, if I get a thought through my head that's a negative thought, I change it quickly because I don't want to think about those things. And let me tell you what, your brain is the most uncontrolled thing in the world. But if you learn how to control it, you have absolute power over yourself. And so
Yeah.
when my brain would start thinking of something just like ugly, something like I would never think about in the way, and it just creeps itself in my subconscious, then I would start going, okay, wait a minute, let's just stop thinking like that. Let's redirect it. Let's change our thought to something positive. What's positive in my life? Okay, I'm breathing right now. That's positive. All right, so I am able to walk. That's positive. I have my arms and my legs. That's positive. I can I have a really awesome puppy at home. That's positive. I have family. That's positive. Like, you start thinking of the positive things. Start being start saying affirmations over yourself, start thinking about the things that you have, and then you can't have two thoughts at the same time. So those negative thoughts
Nope.
instantly disappear, and then now you're thinking about these positive things, and then all of a sudden, before you know it, the anxiety and the panic attacks disappear. You don't have them anymore, and then you can go on with your life. And let me tell you what, when it first happened for me, when I started to learn how to control that, I was like, wow, that just happened and I'm not dealing with it right now because I changed it. Like, I literally found power within myself. It was amazing. Naomi, I'm sure you've had moments like that where you've had experiences where you've learned how to control it through your thoughts, correct?
Well, absolutely. And you mentioned three really important things. The first one is thoughts. We have 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day. We're not even aware of how many thoughts we have. And the thing is that since we're not aware, we don't control them.
Right?
The hardest thing for me to get to was for me to become the observer of my thoughts. And that's what we really need to do. Get to a point where we become the observer of our thoughts, because once you can observe them, you can control them.
Yes.
And self-regulation, what you said, is so important. And you mentioned the ice thing. I don't know if you've heard of Wolfman Hoff, the man who does the ice baths. He goes off walking in the middle of the snow barefoot.
I have
So
not heard of him, but I have
the
seen videos
Iceman.
of people doing that. Yeah.
Yes. So Iceman, look at the Iceman. And so there's something really interesting about cold. When we plunge into cold, it literally stops and it literally regulates our nervous system. And it's really
Mhm.
interesting that you said that, because I feel like we have all the tools that we need inside of us if we just listen to that little voice,
Mhm.
right? That intuition. Because look how you naturally, because I naturally started doing these things and didn't realize it, like looking for the cold, because your body is trying to help you. We just
Yes.
have drowned it down because we have two voices. So we have our intuition and we have the critic. And
Mhm.
what happens is that critic becomes louder because we get so used to listening to the people out there telling us what to do,
Yes.
that our inner
It's
voice
so
starts
true.
saying, yeah, it gets to a point where it's talking to us like this, you shouldn't do that. And we're like, what? But yet that critic
Mhm.
is like, oh, you suck and you can't do that. And what were you thinking? And do you understand what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that voice
Yeah.
gets really, really loud. And so that other voice, which is the one that's designed to help us, becomes almost silent for us,
Mhm.
right? But if we would listen to it, then it would completely change. And by controlling your thoughts, this is why I love working with youth, because I want to help them start doing that at an early age. Because if we started to learn how to self regulate ourselves, then
Mhm.
you know what? The pharmaceutical companies would be out of business, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And we wouldn't have all the chaos we had to. Now, think about it. If everyone in the world practiced personal development and self regulation, do you think the world would be as mad as it would be today? No, because it starts with us. We all think, oh,
Mhm.
I want world peace. I want this. But we're going crazy. We're fighting at home. We're fighting with our families. We can't regulate ourselves. We're addicted to either our phones, to alcohol, and then we're like, no, but we want the world to change. And it doesn't work that way. It starts
Right.
individually. And this is again why I feel so strongly about this group thing mentality, which is being propagated right now today, because it's especially designed so that the individual dies and we become this like group think mentality. And this is why I love podcasts like this, because we have to fight for individuality and for personal growth.
Yeah. Yeah, you had a little bit you broke up just a little bit there, but you're back again, so we're good. We got all of
Oh,
that, so that's awesome.
I'm sorry.
Okay, so I was just saying that, so if any listeners heard that, it's not yours, listeners, it was Naomi's, but she's good, she's back with us, we're good. And I may have some internet issues too, so we're gonna power through this. So you know what I was sitting here thinking is, like you're saying, we definitely have to go within ourselves, and it starts with us, it starts with a change within ourselves. There's a couple books that I've read. So there was this book called This Power of Subconscious Mind, and that book was sitting in my Kindle because I use the Kindle Paperwhite to read my books, and it was sitting in my Kindle and for years and years and years, and I never read it. And when I'm saying years, like it had been in my book for or in my reaches for at least 20 something years. And I don't know why I never read it. I don't know why I just never did until I think what happened, and this is just my own personal opinion. I think what happened is I did not read it until my body and my mind was ready for it. So about a couple months ago, I had went ahead and put it on my Audible. So I listened to the book instead of reading it this time while I was driving on a long trip because I like to listen to audiobooks while driving. And so The Power of Subconscious Mind is written by Joseph Murphy. And I was listening to it and I was like, "Oh my gosh, everything that he's saying in this book or in this audible is what I had figured out on my own, but he's reinforcing those thoughts. He's reinforcing why the subconscious mind is so important to pay attention to,
Yes.
why your thoughts matter." And I was like, that book was so powerful. And it's one of those ones that you definitely, if you do audible or you read it, you definitely want to listen to it over and over and over again. I will have the link to this book in this podcast as well as in the YouTube channel. But there's also, you mentioned something, Naomi, about people who do crazy things over and over again because of the world. And there's another book called Love and Respect. And it's actually a relationship book. And even though anybody who's single, married, in a relationship, or wanting to be in a relationship should probably read this book. But the very beginning of the Love and Respect, it talks about the crazy cycle. And it talks
Yeah.
about the things that we go over and we do over and over and over again, and we don't know how to get out of that crazy cycle. And then it goes in and it talks about how to get out of that crazy cycle and how to actually be more conscious about yourself, but also to respect the other person and that they need to learn that as well. And that book is very powerful. They have a podcast. They have many episodes on their podcast. And the first part of their podcast talks about the crazy cycle and the book in general. And it goes on the rest of the podcast talking about relationships and family and stuff. And it's a really great podcast. I'll share it with you guys as well in that link. And I'm not affiliated with any of these, any of these book writers or anybody like that. I am affiliated with Amazon. So the Amazon links will be an affiliate link. It's like very minute. It's just a place for you guys to be able to find what I'm looking for. And so you have direction to the right ones. Naomi, you have a podcast yourself. What is the name of your podcast?
The podcast is Teen Rockstar Entrepreneur. Yeah, Teen Rockstar Entrepreneur. You know why? Because I feel that entrepreneurs are the rock stars of the future. If you think of today, it's very hard to have job security. I started realizing when it came to young people in college and realizing that 70% of young people really can't find a job in their career of choice. And there isn't really job security. And so I started thinking entrepreneurship in itself, even if a young person doesn't become an entrepreneur, but you learn so many valuable skills through entrepreneurship because it teaches you
Yeah.
all the skills that we talk about: resilience, mindset, pushing past your fears, learning about what your standards, your values are. You mentioned a lot of stuff that was very important when it came to the sex ed classes and what kids are going through today. I feel that a lot that happens is that we all have core beliefs, we all have values, but if no one teaches us how to figure out what our values are, what our standards are, what our passions are, then we go through life lost. And I feel
Exactly.
that when you become or when you study entrepreneurship, when you go on your own, you have no other choice but to study these things and study yourself, because how else are you going to learn or do or teach or create something if you don't know or haven't learned about yourself? And I
Right.
feel like that is the most important thing today for us to learn about ourselves. And when it comes to the subconscious, what you were saying, that book is super important because what people don't realize is that we spent only 5% of our day working out of our prefrontal cortex.
Hmm.
95% of our day, we do it through our subconscious. So we are like a robot pretty much of our day.
Hmm.
We're running patterns, we're subconscious. And this is why whenever something happens that triggers us, we go right back to a subconscious state. And usually it goes back to childhood. This is why when we get into an argument or something very stressful happens, guess who's behind the wheel? The person that's behind the wheel is that child who experienced a trouble similar to this. Even if what happened to you was a 10% of what happened to you in your childhood, we go back to that person. If we didn't address that issue, right? If we didn't address it, we go back to that state, and that person is behind the wheel. And this is why we wonder, okay, well, that didn't go well. Why did I do
Hmm.
that? I can't believe I said that. I can't believe I did that. And it's because we're not in control.
Yeah. Very,
And so
very true.
and all of that is very interesting. And this is why we need to study about ourselves. This is why we need to learn about our mindset, about what our thoughts are, right? About what our values are. Because if we don't, we will be victims of our programming.
Yes. And we do not want to be victims. That's for sure. I think about so when we're a child, we learn how to ride a bike, right? And as we get older, we still know how to ride that bike. Well, how is
Exactly.
that? Because subconsciously, we already know that when we get on a bike, our feet go on the pedals. And then subconsciously, we just know how to ride a bike, keep ourselves balanced, to be able to push those pedals so we can go faster, we can go slower. And we do it without even thinking. And there's so
Yeah.
many things in your life that you learn how to do. Like when you're a baby, you have to learn how to walk, right? Once you learn how to walk, you do it without thinking. There's so many things that we do that we don't even think about that we're doing them. How many times okay, I'm going to do a classic example, and this is kind of funny. Those of you that are listening, you're not watching the video, I'm going to tell you what I'm doing. So as a child, I used to grab a piece of hair and I would literally start twirling my hair. And I would do it without even thinking. And my mom always knew that when I would twirl my hair, it was meant that I was tired. It meant that I started to get sleepy. I still to this day at 44 years old will catch myself twirling my hair. I will sit there and twirl my hair for like several minutes before I even realize that I'm doing it. And it's my subconscious mind saying that I'm tired and that's a relaxing mode, something that relaxes me. And my body automatically goes to twirling my hair subconsciously. And those are things that until you it's almost like you have to wake up and go, "Oh wait, oh, I'm twirling my hair. Let me stop that for a second." Or maybe I want to keep twirling my hair because it feels good, but still the thing is that I do it without even thinking, and then I realize that I'm doing it. And so when we're aware of those thoughts and we take control of them, then that's when you start realizing yourself, your inner being, because when you start recognizing those subconscious thoughts or those subconscious things that you do, and you start redirecting yourself into a more positive direction, then that's when you know that you've now started to have victory over your body, over your mind, over your thoughts, over your health. This works with your health as well. Your spiritual being, I've been taught that, and I just recently was taught this. It's not something I was taught as a young child, but recently, and it's just through studies and things. Naomi and I were talking about you are the subtotal of the 5 people that you hang around the most. So if the 5 people that you hang around the most, if they are, they work at McDonald's, they sleep on their couch all day and they're couch potatoes and they eat a lot of stuff, then you're gonna do the same thing.
And if you're around someone who's complaining, who is negative, who is lazy,
Mhm.
who is not motivated, who maybe is addicted to video games or addicted, so it naturally you are going to navigate towards that because it's
Mhm.
natural. What people don't understand is that this is a suit. But we are spiritual beings, like you mentioned before. And our soul is in this body, just like our body is in this clothes. This clothes is just covering our body, just like our body's covering our spirit. And what is spirit? It's a frequency, it's
Yes.
energy.
Mhm.
And different frequencies can't be opposing each other all the time. So if you are a very happy person and you are married to someone who's a downer, who's negative, who drinks, who criticizes a lot, your guys are going to be battling. Someone has to
Mhm.
win. You understand?
Yes.
Someone in the household is going to win. Either this person is going to meet you where you are and raise their frequency, or you are going to go down and meet them where they are. And
And that
usually what
is so
happens,
true.
and that is so true. So this is why I always tell young people, you are the sum of the 5 people you are. And don't think that when you are starting, it's better to put yourself in a situation where people are going to uplift you. Because if you don't have this mastered, what's going to happen is it's much easier. Okay, let's be real. If your husband's sitting all day watching TV and you're home cleaning, you're doing work, you're sitting there and you're writing and you're journaling, you're doing all this, what do you think it's easier? For you to join him and watch a movie and that, or for him to say, you know what, honey, I'm gonna get up and clean and do this and do
Mhm.
no, it's gonna be easier for you to meet him, right? And this is what people don't realize because it all has to do with frequency. So it is very important, especially in the beginning when we're starting this journey of self awareness and trying to change our patterns to better habits. Who we associate with or who we are with most of the time is going to affect our personal state. You are
Mhm.
100% right.
Let's talk about the other actions. So, if you want to be an entrepreneur, if you want to own your own business one day, if you want to be much more energetic, if you want to be able to do more things in life, like let's say you want to be a quilter or you want to be in a book club or you want to be a podcaster. You're going to want to go find those people that already have the life that you have and get around them. What do they do? What kind of groups do they attend? How do they get better? One of the things that I used to wanna do is learn how to be a speech, talk better. I'm still working on it, obviously, but I started to seek out those programs or those groups that actually teach that and get around that. And those are some of the things that you can do. You can get around those that are entrepreneurs. So I was with a group of people for about 3 years. It was like mentors is what I called them, and every one of them had the same mindset. They all wanted to be entrepreneurs. They all wanted to be able to better their lives, better their marriages, better their groups. And that changed my life. It changed the way I thought. It changed the way that I acted. It made me stronger. I and here's the other thing, and I'm just gonna warn you guys this. You're gonna have friends that were friends of yours for 30 something years or longer. And you're going to have friends that you used to go hang out at the bars with, or that you always had fun with, or maybe you went to your house and just chilled out with. And they're your bros, they're your buddies, they're your friends, they're your best friends. But when you start changing to the positive and you start becoming like an entrepreneur and an entrepreneur mindset, or you start to do go a positive direction, and they don't be surprised that you start losing connection with them. Don't be
Oh
surprised
yeah.
that when you get into a conversation with them, you literally have nothing to talk about. Don't be
Yep.
surprised that it can go months, years, that you never talk to them again. It's not that you don't love them. It's not that they don't love you. It's not that they're not your friends anymore. It's just that you've moved on with your life and they stayed stagnant. You have changed your
Exactly.
surroundings and they have not. And you can try as much as you want to get them to come up to your level, but unless they're ready to do it themselves, it's not gonna happen. Don't focus on them,
Yes.
stay focused on yourself. Right,
That's very
Naomi?
important. Absolutely. I've actually lost family members. I My favorite cousin, I'm 52 years old. We have this was God, I adored her. And for this same reason, we completely lost not just our relationship, but the friendship that we had. And what happens is when you try to better yourself, you become a bother to those people because they want to, if they're not ready, we all have to be ready to change. If they're not ready, if they want to stay complaining, if they want to stay making excuses for their life, if they want to stay blaming others for their misfortunes, if they don't want to accept responsibility for the changes they have to make, guess what? They're going to be upset at you because you represent everything that they are fighting to keep. And
Mhm.
that is something that we all have to be very strong. And this is why I say that going inward is so important because sometimes we worry so much about other people. But my question is, how much do you love yourself? We have to
Yes.
love others, but eventually we come into this world alone and we live alone. And this is not a criticism because I love family and I had a partner for 15 years. I love being
Uh-oh.
it slipped it went away for a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, it was slipped
So this
you
is not
froze.
taking away that we are creatures that need belonging. But we forget that the most important thing is the relationship with ourselves.
Yes.
And that's what we need to fight for. That is the most important thing. And sometimes this is the big test. We are going to lose relationships with others in order to win that relationship with ourselves. And that's the number one relationship we should focus on. We should worry about being good with ourselves more than being good with others.
Yes. So we're gonna end this at because we're at our time, but this we're gonna end this at a positive note because we're right where we need to be. So those that are listening, think about what it is you want out of life. You know, if you're married, what do you want in your marriage? What do you want as a mother? What do you want as a husband? What do you want to be as an employer or as an owner of a business? Like, where do you see yourself? Think about those aspects. If you have to get a piece of paper, write it down. If you have to sit in a shower for hours and think about what it is that you want, think about it. Then get yourselves around those that have or have already done that aspect. So if you want a good marriage, get around a group of people that have good marriages. Don't allow other people into your marriage. That's a big one because it's so important to comprehend that Your life is your life, and nobody else controls your life. And if you want something better, you're in control of getting to that better. And you need to make those changes within yourselves. It could be your thoughts, it could be changes in your words, it could be changes in your actions, it can be changes in just simply getting up every day and making a routine, making your bed. Make your bed every day. It could
Yes,
be cleaning your surroundings. It could be as simple as if you need to lose weight, get up and just go outside and take a small walk. I'm not asking you to jog down the road. I'm asking
exactly.
you to every day for 5 minutes get outside and just go walk down to the end of your driveway, turn around, walk back to your house. And then the next week, go a little bit further and then go a little bit further because before you know it, subconsciously, your body's going to get up every day and get out there and go for that walk. So make that
Yeah,
positive aspect. Take that day, take today to decide what it is that you want, and you make one step to that area that you want closer. It could be a small step, but it starts with something small. It'll build itself big. The biggest key is staying consistent, being persistent, and don't stop. Don't ever give up on yourself. Ever, ever,
yes,
ever. Naomi, with the
yes.
last words you need to say?
Yeah, what you said was great. It's baby steps. So you gave the example of fitness. Even if it's the night before, putting your exercise clothes and your sneakers there and just starting like that, that's what matters, taking consistency. And another thing, when I started this journey, in the beginning, I did not have the funds to maybe join a mastermind, or I didn't have the ability to find the people that I wanted to hang out with. But thanks to social media now, you could find your friends online. So listen to books, find your favorite speakers, make sure that you listen to them every day, make them your friends, right?
Mhm.
Start hanging out with them socially. Like at the beginning, that's what I did. I would listen to Joe Dispenza, I would listen to Tony Robbins. These
Yes,
people became my friends in the beginning. These were the people that I listened to the most in the beginning. And then another thing that I will say is writing things down. That changed my life completely. If we would all sit down and write our thoughts and write what we want for 15 minutes a day, you will see your life drastically change in 30 days, because this is how you start developing that self-awareness and your subconscious starts becoming conscious to you. So those are the little tips that I would give you right now. There's so many that we could have, that we could
yes,
talk, we could sit here and talk forever, but I think that those are really important. Find a way to make what you want happen, and start with baby steps and start writing. I really feel that writing is a miracle. And not only that, it does two
yes.
things, because talking about something, you're using one mode of communication. But when you're writing it down, you're actually giving your brain two processes, because you're not only saying it, but now your brain is thinking it and it's actually reading it. So it's
Yes.
retaining it twice as fast. So that's why I always say write, write, write. It's so important.
Absolutely. I had really low self-esteem and really low self-worth because of a relationship I was in for 8 years. It broke me down. And I had to build that back up. And one of the things that I did was I got a small little book and I started writing affirmations in that book. And I had like several pages of affirmations. You are strong. You're a great mother. You're beautiful. You can do anything you put your mind to. All of these affirmations. And every single day I sat down and read these to myself. Every single day until I started believing them.
Yes.
And
Oh,
so
and what
writing, go ahead.
I was gonna say, what you said is magical, because it's so true. At the beginning, I don't know if you've heard the fake it till you make it. At the beginning, changing these patterns doesn't feel natural, because you're like, I feel like I can't. I feel like I'm not good enough. But it takes a while for the brain to process it. But if you sit there and keep on writing it down, believe me, I am are the two most powerful words in the world.
Mhm.
And if you
Mhm.
continuously start writing something positive after I am, you will become whatever it is you attach after those words.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. So, you guys go ahead and write down your affirmations, write down those positive things, write down the things that you want. Leave comments of your what you've done. If you want to join us on our website, go and look up Healthy Mindset Miracles on Facebook. We also have a website coming out. If you like this podcast, be sure to like, share, and comment, and also subscribe. We thank you so much for listening. Naomi, thank you so much for your time. I cannot wait to have you back on here with us. We have so much more to talk about. You are amazing. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you so much. I super enjoyed the interview, as all our talks. And to everybody, I hope you guys enjoyed it and get a lot out of it as well. And yes, I hope to be on here again.
Yeah, absolutely.